So let's look at comic book sales through the year. Now we already know that August was just a record-setting year, period. Okay, if you look at this article by Heidi MacDonald for ComicsBeat.com, you see that she says that basically since 1998, Diamond Comic Distributors have never shipped more than 10 million comic books to comic ships in a single month. And that changed this August as DC's Rebirth resulted in shipments of 10.26 million comics to retailers in North America. Okay, so that in itself is remarkable. And it's probably because of Suicide Squad and Harley Quinn that happened. Now, in terms of years, they say the comic book industry is kind of dying out. Well, let's see what the figures say. Of course, you have to cater for inflation, of course. 2011, in terms of digital and print sales, they made 715 million. 2012, 805 million. 2013, 870 million. 2014, 935 million. And 2015, 1.03 billion. In the digital copies, it kind of increased more or less. 25 million in 2011, 70 million in 2012, 90 million in 2013, 100 million in 2014, and 90 million in 2015. Now, these are the actual prices, grosses, right? This is not necessarily the amount of copies that happened. You have to remember that. Remember, things inflate at amount of time. So this just may be the same amount, but just inflation, right? So here we see the grosses without digital copies, right? So you see 300 to 320 million, 1997, 280 to 300 million, 1998, 1999, it goes up and up, and it goes up and 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 up. I'm up, okay? Up to 2015. Now, the interesting thing about this is this, okay? That these figures only cater for inflation. It doesn't mean that the market is expanding, and that's why they can say that, you know, the comic book industry seems to be dying. Okay. Now, what's happening so far for 2016? What's happening in sales with respect to that? So let's go first to monthly sales, and then let's tap into yearly sales, which will be here, 2016. And 2016 so far, up to the month of August, we have $330.6 million. And they're saying down by 1% year over year. Okay, that was up to the month of what month do they have here? This is up to the month of July of 2016. Okay, because when we look at this article here, they have an update that the actual figures now currently is the actual figure somewhere up here is $388.35 million. So August month brought in $57.66 million, which is a lot of money. Okay, that's a lot of money. So it's currently standing at $388.35 million. Okay, it's not $330 million anymore. So based on that, that completely changed the market. Okay, that changed the whole year actually. But I want to show you the individual comic sales for the months leading up to July. We already know for August because we saw that in the last video, right? So here's what's going on. I'll just give you the top 5 comics. So it was July 2016. Remember, at that point in time, the movie Star Wars was out. Okay, so let's look at the top 5 here. We have The Walking Dead, which is from Image Comics, because the Walking Dead series was going on. Then we had Secret Wars, which is a Marvel comic. We had Spider-Man, Deadpool. Deadpool was to come out the following month. And then we had Star Wars, and we had Star Wars again. Okay, so it basically was dominated by Marvel for the first 5. But what we have to look at is the grosses. If you notice, the grosses for the first 5 were all over $100 million, which is big. That's huge. Okay, so those really raked in the ton of money. Okay, the first DC comic was way down here, number 8, Batman. sales, graphic novel paperback sales. Again, Star Wars was number one, which made sense because Star Wars was out. When a movie's out, it actually promotes the comics, right? And we had another Star Wars movie out. Then we have Deadpool, which was doing well. Deadpool was to come out the following month, so that makes sense. The Death of Wolverine, and then we had Star Wars Lando. So basically, Star Wars dominated everything, just like expected. And then we had a Deadpool comic out there. Okay, even number 6 was Deadpool again. But again, look at the market share. This is 7.85. I guess this is, I don't know if this is millions or thousands. I don't know. I think these are sales, the actual sales that happened. All right, not as much as like over on top of here, the issues, right? Let's go to February. February of 2016, the number one comic out there was a DC comic. It was The Dark Knight, The Master Race. Okay, and this is how many sales they had. All right, that's a lot of comics. Significantly higher than Star Wars. Significantly higher than Batman. Okay, and then we had Spider-Man and we had Deadpool, Works for Money, and Deadpool came out that month. Okay, the month of February. But notice, only 3 were over $100 million in sales, and The Dark Knight 3 just, I mean, it was huge, a vast difference between all the sales. Okay. Paperback, what were we looking at? In paperback, we had Image Comics, number 1, 7,000. And a significant difference between that and Star Wars Chewbacca. Star Wars was there again, Lumberjacks. We had Batman, The Dark Knight Returns, which makes sense, and Batman, Harley, and Ivy. Okay, a lot of Batman stuff. In the month of March, oops, that's the wrong year. Okay, in the month of March 2016, again, Batman was just dominating everything. And significant difference in sales again. And it makes sense. Batman, it was Batman v Superman month, so the Batman sales just really rocketed. And then next in line was Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, believe it or not. And then after that was Star Wars. Star Wars always does well. And then Superman came in next, and The Amazing Spider-Man after. So this showed you the ranking of how these characters were valued by the market at the time. Batman v Superman came out, so that's why Superman's even mentioned there. So Superman's sales actually went up because of that. Again, significant difference between Batman and any other sale. The Walking Dead just completely cleared gaps between itself and then Paper Girls, which was some Image comic. Both Image comics, so they dominated. Then Civil War came next. Tokyo Ghost, and then of course another Batman. Batman Endgame was there. So Batman's always around. Okay. Civil War was to come out 2 months later. In the month of April, this was still BVS territory, but strangely Black Panther did very well. Ooh, so well. Look at that. Look at the tremendous gap between it and Star Wars. Star Wars came out as well. Now remember, Star Wars had this, not only did they have a movie, but they also had a TV show. So all of those things aid in sales. But look at this, ridiculous, the demand for Black Panther. And that's why Black Panther ended up in Civil War. And you had here Star Wars, Poe Dameron, then you had The Dark Knight, Batman's always in there. Significant earnings here. Star Wars Special CPO, C3PO, and then Batman again. So Batman's always there. Batman is always there. He's even more popular than Deadpool or Spider-Man. Batman's always there, you know. Okay. And in paperback, what are we looking at in paperback? Paperback, Wonder Woman. Oof. I mean, Wonder Woman just blew the tables off of everybody. And then, of course, you have your Star Wars, and then you had Image Comics, 2 Image Comics, and then you had Thanos, Infinity Wars. That got everybody's attention. You remember Civil War was the following month. But notice that certain comics just are dominant. Star Wars, Batman, you know, uh, you just see them all the time, you know. That's how big those comics are. So, month of May, Civil War's year. We went Civil War's month. And believe it or not, DC Comics Rebirth blew everybody away. Then had Civil War. So Civil War was secondary to DC Comics Rebirth. Wasn't the case with Batman v Superman. Batman dominated. You know what I mean? But you have to understand that Marvel's not that powerful. They do well in the market, but they're not powerful like a Batman. Or, you know, you have Star Wars. Star Wars, Darth Vader, Star Wars, they dominate the market. You know what I mean? So DC Universe Rebirth actually blew everybody away. Then it was Civil War next, which blew everybody away as well. Then you had the Punisher comic strangely coming out. I don't know why that happened. Then you had Batman. Like I said, Batman is like the most dominant thing. And then you had Captain America, Steve Rogers. So kind of like Superman, when Civil War came out, it kind of pulled up Captain America. Same thing for Superman, except Superman was pulled up, I think, a little less than Captain America. Captain America actually did more sales than Superman. It tells us the time we're in. And then again, Batman dominates with the Killing Joke. Not as much, though. Image Comics, Descender, then Civil War. Now remember, this is the year when Civil War is launched. The month where Civil War is launched, and it's third on the list. Okay, you had Black Science, which is Image Comic, and then you had We Stand on Guard Deluxe. We had seen no Star Wars this time. So Star Wars effect has disappeared. That was for the month of May. Here's the month of June. Finally, Civil War makes it to the top. Okay. So, I mean, the ridiculous sales. Look at that. 381,737 comics were sold. That's ridiculous. But then next was Batman. But he's 100,000 comics less. It's still ridiculous. And then Batman Rebirth. Which pretty much equals Batman equals Civil War. Pretty much when you add these figures together, you're going to get about 379.8, which is almost the same as Civil War. That's how powerful Batman is. And then you have Star Wars, Han Solo. Then you have another Civil War comic, which kind of pushes it a little further. All right. And then what comes right after it? Batman. two Batman comics. So, you know, if you add the aggregates, Batman just takes care of. Batman is the superhero of superheroes. It's not Spider-Man. It's not Superman. It's Batman. It's like that crazy. And you know, Batman doesn't even have his own series right now. You know, Star Wars has their own series. You know what I mean? That's how crazy Batman is. It was the month of June. Batman can single-handedly take on any comic. Once you say Batman, it's over. That's why Batman says, "I'm Batman." You know what I mean? And that started off with Tim Burton's Batman. What was his name? Michael Keaton. You know, the "I'm Batman" line didn't come from Christopher Nolan. You know, it came from Tim Burton's Batman. It was like, it actually came from the comics, but nonetheless, it started off with Tim Burton's Batman when the guy says, "Who are you?" And Tim Burton says, "I'm Batman." I'm sorry, not Tim Burton, Michael Keaton. "I'm Batman. Tell your friends about me." He was in a whisper voice. It was so sick. All right. Anyway, in the month of July, I think I'm in July. Yeah. In the month of July, Justice League kills everybody, and Justice League Rebirth. Now, I don't understand why that happened. I can't explain it to you. And of course, next in line is Batman. And after that, Civil War, and then Batman again. So Batman, and look at the numbers too. These are astronomically high numbers. But you have to ask yourself, does the Justice League even beat Batman? And the answer is no. Batman has 177 million and 168 million. Okay, Justice League does beat Batman in this case. But it's crazy. I mean, if you add in Nightwing, who's an associate of Batman, you know, and so on. You really look at all these figures, all the way down to the top 10 are over 110 million, 110,000. That's ridiculous. You know, a lot of DC Comics in here too. Now on paperback, what are we looking at? Well, on paperback, Monstress Volume 1 from Image Comics does exceptionally well. And then Harley Quinn's Greatest Hits comes next, and then Batman, The Killing Joke, of course, and then Star Wars, and then Huck. But in all of Comic Done, I'm going to tell you guys, just looking at this data from the month of January to the month of July, we see that Batman is the comic. Batman comics sell all through the year, and they sell, okay? Anybody associated with Batman pretty much will do well. And Harley Quinn, she's coming up there too. She's getting as popular as Batman. So I don't know. We'll see what'll happen. But this was the month before Suicide Squad, and Harley Quinn was doing her thing, you know, but she hadn't been in the top 5, and Batman is there like a religion. Okay, so that's why people talk about. And that's why they talk about Batman a lot, and Batman forming the Justice League and so on. It's because Batman sells, man. Batman sells. Superman doesn't sell as much as Batman. Superman doesn't even sell as much as Captain America. You're not seeing Iron Man anywhere, are you, folks? You're seeing Batman. You got Star Wars. They're kind of competitive, okay? Darth Vader, Star Wars. But they can't compete with Batman. Batman be dominating everything for years. You know what I mean? So I just thought it was very interesting. DC does very well with their comics. As you can see, their numbers are astronomical in terms of sales. August month has been a record month. And of course, Batman is in there somewhere. Because Harley Quinn did very well as well in terms of box office sales. If you haven't seen that video, go look at my former video. But I guarantee you, Batman is in there. And just my last thing I want to say. Who are you? I'm Batman. Tell your friends about me. You guys have a great one.